Caitlin Hill. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's video. Today I'm going to be talking about my birth story with Safia, what my journey was like leading up to it, what the actual birth was like, and some things that I learned along the way. So before you start watching, please hit that subscribe button. It's really important. So where do I begin? During my pregnancy, I was really drawn to having a home birth. I was really interested in that. I had done research on it and was sort of mentally preparing myself for what that was going to be like, which was hard because we've been so trained in our society that we don't know how to birth. That's like something that we learned from watching movies, from our friends, family, just from like our society in general teaches us is that our bodies don't know how to birth. That's not something that we're taught from when we're born, is that we instinctually know how to birth. And so it was hard for me when I was pregnant. I was constantly going back and forth between like, I know how to do this, and then sort of like diving into my fear and being like, I don't know how to do this, which is sort of crazy because our bodies are made to do this. Instinctually, our bodies know how to birth. We don't birth with our minds. We birth with our bodies and our hearts. So it was something that I really had to work through and break through a lot of my pregnancy. Even though I had actually set up a hospital birth with my midwife, I sort of was secretly hoping that I would just end up giving birth at home in my bathtub, and that was totally gonna happen, and that's the way it was gonna go down. But I realized that I have to actually be a little bit more prepared than that. Basically, during my pregnancy, spent a lot of time researching about home births, trusting your intuition, listening to your body. I had a fantastic pregnancy. I know that is not the tale for everyone, and it's not even the tale for, one woman can have two different births and they can be totally different stories. So, I had a fantastic pregnancy with Safia. I've never felt more confident or beautiful in my body. I never had any sickness. I didn't experience basically anything. I felt amazing other than the exhaustion in the beginning. I was definitely tired, and I had some acid reflux at one point, and obviously near the very end, like walking was very uncomfortable, like those sort of normal things. But overall, I had a great experience. So that was pretty awesome. I can definitely say I enjoyed being pregnant. So during my pregnancy, I did a course called Hypnobabies. It basically teaches you hypnosis for how to become hypnotized when you are when you are in your birthing time. So all of the language, all of the wording is changed during your birthing time and leading up to your birth. For example, birthing time labor is called birthing time because it's your birthing time. Labor sounds like it's really hard. So birthing time is the word that's used for that. And contractions are called pressure waves. Basically learned all of this different terminology from this course that Matisse and I took. And we had a lot of reading to do a lot around it, and a lot of personal work to do through it. There's a lot of meditations that you have to listen to every day. And then it sort of goes week by week. It's like this week you listen to this hypnosis, and this next week you listen to this hypnosis, and then there was one track that you had to listen to every single day leading up to your birth, and it was super helpful. I think that the Hypnobabies really helped me stay calm during my pregnancy. It did get me to a place of fully trusting in myself and knowing that this was a natural thing that was happening to me, and knowing that my body was capable of doing it, that I think in itself it was worth it. Did it cut out the pain for me during my actual birthing time? No. Did it help me stay relaxed? Yes. So I would say overall it was a great, first thing to do during my first birth. And I would definitely use it again during another pregnancy. I just think that I would probably mix it with some other research, different books, maybe some more personalized stuff. I felt the Hypnobaby stuff was sort of like very broad. It could be for everyone, and I really don't believe in a one size fits all mentality. So I felt that it was quite broad, and it's like, this is supposed to work for anyone, anybody and anyone. And that just simply, I don't think is true. So, but like I said, kept me really calm, kept me trusting in my body's ability to give birth. And that was another one, is that your baby isn't delivered by someone else. Like, if when someone says, oh, that person, that doctor or that midwife delivered my baby, no. You're the one that's doing all the work. You're the one that needs the credit. You're the one that's delivering your baby. They may assist in getting it out of you, but you deliver the baby. So there was a lot of cool things I learned from that course, which was really awesome. Another thing that I did was I went to a weekly prenatal yoga class, and I did a prenatal yoga 20 minutes a day just at home through a website called spinningbabies.com. And they had so many, the 20 minutes was something I always looked forward to. Perfect poses for when you're pregnant, super gentle. And also there was lots of exercises on there and things to do for like if your baby was in the wrong position. So I think that really helped me out a lot too. I also watched a really good movie called The Business of Being Born. Really, really insightful movie. Super glad that we watched that. And we were like, from there, just after watching that, I was like, I just want to have the baby at home. But still, weirdly, I had this like weird societal, like, even though my heart was saying have an at-home birth, like the pressures of society were still telling me that I couldn't do it. And like, when you're pregnant and you're in this super vulnerable position, people will tell you what you're capable of doing. People will tell you, oh, you're gonna get an epidural and this and blah blah blah, and it's so much pain, and people unload on you a lot when you're pregnant. And I would come home some days after being out all day and just like cry to Matisse, just being like, oh my god, like everyone is constantly like unloading their own stories onto me about their pregnancies. So especially when you're pregnant, it's so important to like stay true to yourself, stay true to what you know to be true. You are your own authority. You're the only person that knows what you are capable of. You're the only person that knows what you have been through and where you've been in your life to get you to the place of being able to have a baby. And that's no one else's story to tell you. So when people start unloading on you, telling you this is what your birth is going to be like and blah, 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 which is I took on really intensely at that time. I was in this vulnerable position. I'd never had a baby before. Maybe I didn't know what I was talking about. Maybe I didn't know what I was being drawn to. And so I sort of believed those stories, unfortunately. But I'm still happy that I had the curiosity to do the research that I was doing, for sure, because things are going to be different next time. So I did all of that work. We went through a midwifery clinic in Vancouver called South Community Birth Center. It's on Kingsway. They were fantastic. And I basically, kept on going into every appointment being like, I just don't want to have any drugs and I don't want to have any of this and blah, 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 blah. They were sort of like, okay, we'll see what happens. You never know what's going to happen. And I was open to that. I was also just sort of like, we just want to have a healthy, happy baby and experience. And was the most important thing. Had a fantastic pregnancy, sort of did all the work that I felt that I could do up until that point, got really connected with myself, and sort of trusted and surrendered to what was going to happen at that time, when that time started, because I feel that it can be a pretty anxious time leading up. You don't know when it's going to happen. You don't know where it's going to happen, all these things. And I just remember really taking that last month to myself before my birthing time started and honoring, like, what do I want to do? I ate really good food. I went to meditation classes. I did yoga. I relaxed. I laid in bed. I napped. I watched movies. Oh my God, all these things that you can't do when you have a newborn. So I'm really happy that I honored that time for myself and took that time for myself. That was really important. So, and also honored time with Matisse. Matisse and I would go on dates together. We would spend time together because this was the last time that it was just going to be just the two of us. And so it was really important to honor that special time before having the baby together. So at the very end of my pregnancy, it was very interesting. I felt like anytime I had any sort of interaction with the hospital, like I had to do a stress test and all this kind of stuff, they kept on pressuring me into just having the baby right then and there. Because like you learn in the business of being born, you're kind of just a number. They really just want to get you in and out the door as fast as possible. And they literally went in for my stress test and the woman was like, okay, so, you're over 40 weeks pregnant. Do you want to just go right now? And we'll get things going now. And I was like, no, I'm good. I trusted and knew from taking the Hypnobabies course that my baby will come when my baby's ready to come. This is a normal, natural thing that needs to happen in its own time frame. It gets me fired up just thinking about that because, again, you're going through this vulnerable time. If you've never gone through it before, you don't know who to trust. You don't know who to listen to. And I can imagine so many women being in that experience and being like, oh, okay, I think the doctor, said that I should get things going and I should just have the baby right here and now. And that's not the case. You don't have to do that. There is even up until, and they also say, at 42 weeks, you have to have the baby, like they have to get things going. That's not the case. Do your research, listen to yourself. But I was like, I'm not doing anything to get things going. I'm literally going to let this baby come naturally. And if I was really, really uncomfortable, then I would have done it in a totally natural way at home. So yeah, again, like knowing your information is so... The more information you have, the more power you have when you're pregnant because people will take advantage of how little you know about giving birth and your own body during these times, for sure. So basically, I was 41 and almost 42 weeks pregnant. I think I was like 3 days shy of 42 weeks pregnant. And I woke up in the middle of the night, I went pee, and there was blood in the toilet. And I ran into the washroom. Or I ran into the bedroom to tell Matisse, and I was like, Matisse, oh my God, it's starting. And he's just like, opens his eyes, looks at it, and he's like, oh yeah, just go back to bed. And I was like, okay. Definitely did not sleep for the rest of the night. That was like 3 a.m, so didn't sleep for the rest of that night. And then didn't nap during that next day. We went for lunch and everything, sort of like carrying on, whatever. And then at I was like 6:30 p.m. on a Sunday night. We were watching the Grammys. Matisse was cutting his fingernails in the next room because he didn't want to pick up the baby and scratch the baby. So cute. And I just remember feeling this really intense cramp that just felt like a period cramp times 10. And being like, babe, I think it's starting. And from there, it was sort of an interesting time for it to start because, like I said, I hadn't slept through the whole night previously. And then it was starting at 6:30 p.m. So I was already exhausted. And then what happened from there was basically trying to just ride the waves. We had an exercise ball. I'm actually going to do a video on things must-haves for pregnancy, and an exercise ball is one of them. That's was $10. Best purchase ever. I just sat on the ball, would bounce on the ball and sort of breathe through the waves. I took some baths and I just basically stayed at home, and we waited for the doula to come by. She didn't come by till around 10:30, and basically she just helped me go through the waves, but it was more intense than I had been expecting. And I kept on thinking, oh, is it gonna happen? Is it gonna happen? But I wasn't feeling the sensation that the doula kept on saying to me. She kept on saying, when you feel like you have to take the biggest poo of your life, that is when we need to go to the hospital. Again, in my mind, I was sort of like, if I get that feeling, I just want to like have it here at home. We're here anyways. Like, why do I have to go to the hospital to do it? But that's not what it ended up happening. So yeah, we'd gone through the whole night. It was about 7 a.m. in the morning. The doula wasn't able to check how dilated I was. And we went in. I was just like, I just need something, like I need to know what's going on, or I want to be checked to see how dilated I am. So we went into the hospital. They checked to see how dilated I am, and they were like, we're so sorry, you're only 2 centimeters dilated. And I was like, what? Like, I had been having pressure waves for 12 plus hours, and some of them were back to back, and it was intense. So I was like, how am I only 2 centimeters? That doesn't make any sense. And they kept on saying, oh, first babies are like that, blah, blah, blah. And then, I had been in so much pain for such a long time already up until that point. And they were like, do you want a shot of morphine? And I was like, yeah, please. Like, I need to sleep or rest or do something. I just need to take a break. Like, I was exhausted at that point. So going from like having absolutely no drugs in my pregnancy to being like, yes, please give me a shot of morphine was definitely like, I guess you just don't know what it's going to feel like. So I got a shot of morphine, and then we came back home, and we actually slept. We slept for like a good 2 to 3 hours. And then as the morphine was wearing off, I was awoken by the pressure waves. I was feeling them again. And so I was awoken by the waves, and we were sort of like so exhausted, but we were like, okay, let's do this. Like, let's get this going. Let's get this baby out. So basically, I did Tahitian hip shakes and walked up and down the stairs for like, so that was maybe around 10 or 11 a.m. We did that until 8 p.m. that night. Trying to get things going, trying to get it moving, trying to get it out, trying to get the baby out. And it just, wasn't happening. And the doula actually wasn't there for that portion of the day, because we were like, you don't even have to be here. Like, Matisse basically like took on the role of the doula, honestly. That was until about 8 p.m. Called the midwife to have her come by so that I didn't have to go into the hospital again. So she came by to check to see how dilated I was. And literally in this bed right here came to check to see how dilated I was. And she's like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry to tell you this, but you are still only 2 centimeters dilated. And I was like, how is that possible? Like, I literally, at this point, it had been more than 24 hours. And I was like, how is that possible? Like, I was having pressure waves, everything was happening. I'm like, how is that possible? How am I not more dilated? So, she was like, we've got some other options. We can take you into the hospital, and we can sort of give you some oxytocin to get things going. And I'm sure that'll get things going. And then, you'll have the baby. So, after a lot of deliberation, and, it was hard. It was something that I really wanted, for it to be as natural as possible. But I was just so exhausted and in so much pain that I was like, we just, want to get things going here. So we did go into the hospital that night. I just have memories of like screaming at the door and having to like sign paperwork to like get admitted and stuff. And it's just like, and I mean by screaming, like just having my pressure waves and just, yeah, it was just intense. The hospital vibe it's intense for sure. So went in, and then they we had this like, it was very chill. We made it really chill. The lights were down dim. We had this peace poster over the clock that was in the room. We had like my birthing playlist. It was like really zen and chill, and you know, it was a really relaxed vibe. And then they gave me the oxytocin, and that was just like the most painful thing ever. My contractions were like so intense, back to back. Just I at that point was unable to speak. I was in so much pain. And but it was nice. I was still able to like go in the bath there, even though my arm was connected to the oxytocin. I went into the bath. I had always envisioned having a water birth, so I was still sort of like holding on to that. Oh my god, I think it had been like 4 hours maybe. Oh my god, I want to say it had been 4 more hours of being on the oxytocin. And the same midwife that came to the house checked. She's awesome. She checked my, her name was Zoe. She works at the South Community birth program. And she checked to see how dilated I was again. And she was like, I'm so sorry to tell you this, but you're still only 2 centimeters dilated. And then that's sort of when I like lost my mind, really. Like I was like swearing and freaking out, and I was like, I can't do that. Like, to be in that much pain for, at that point it had been 30 hours. I was just like, what am I supposed to do at this point? You know, like I couldn't be in this unbearable pain of being on the oxytocin anymore. And I just really just, it was just so much. It was hard. I was upset when she told me that time, because I was like, I feel like I'm like climbing a mountain here. I'm never getting to the top. Basically, that's what it felt like. And so yeah, I was in so much pain. I was at the point where I couldn't even like communicate that I needed something else. Like I was like, get me something, like I need something. And then I remember the midwife being like, are we having the conversation that I think that we're having? And I was like, yes, like, please, I need an epidural right now. Like, please get me anything. Like, I can't do this anymore. And it was so crazy, because it was like suddenly, like the person with the epidural almost felt like they were like waiting outside the door, you know, just like ready to come in. And the doctor came into the room, and he put the epidural into my back, and all of that went smoothly. So, and I remember him saying to me, you know, so the good news is that the epidural is in now, and it all went in, you know, really well. But the bad news is it takes 15 minutes to start working. And at that point, I literally didn't feel like I had 15 minutes. So I was like, okay. But once it started to work, I did feel so much better. But it was really interesting how intensely the vibe had changed once it went from sort of like, you know, we're still doing our like hypnobirthing, like calm vibe, to like, suddenly, as soon as I had the epidural, we weren't in our regular clothes anymore. Suddenly we were in like hospital clothes, and the lights were on, the bright lights were on. Anyone and anybody who I hadn't seen the entire night was like walking into the room, which was not, I had printed off a really, really cool thing that I found online of like preferences for my birthing time. And like I had fully put on there, like I only want a couple people in the room at the time, and everyone, and like as soon as I said yes to the epidural, I was like everyone and anyone could be in the room basically. So, you know, the peace sign came off the clock. It was sort of like, okay, she's like on drugs now, and this is the way it is. It was very interesting transition for sure. And it was sort of like all of the like hypnobirthing meditations and hypnosis that we'd been doing, and Matisse had been repeating to me the entire night. He had been there with me. He was sort of felt really let down. He felt let down. I didn't, because I was happy to have the relief, but he felt really let down of being like, you know, we wanted it to be natural, and I hope everything I was saying was working, because Matisse literally was my doula. Like he was repeating all of the hypnosis into my ear up until those, you know, for 30 hours with no sleep. Matisse was there with me the entire time, there with me, as if he was, I mean, he was going through the birth too, but as if he was, you know, like pregnant himself, like he was right there with me. So he felt sort of let down when I finally ended up having the epidural. And I was like, don't feel let down. It's happening the way it's supposed to happen. Look, you know, we've come this far. We've done everything that we could. And I still felt like I was making a choice about it. I think that's the most important thing, is I still felt like I was choosing to take the epidural. I didn't feel like it was pushed on me. If it had been pushed on me and I had taken it, I think I would have felt much different. But I really truly believe in sovereign birthing and making sovereign decisions for yourself and being your own authority and being like, okay, I want to take the epidural now, you know? So it didn't feel like, oh no, like I took drugs, like, oh no, that's not what I had envisioned, or you know, that's not what I wanted, or whatever. I didn't feel that way. I felt good about my decision, and so that was the most important thing. So anyways, I get the epidural, I'm relaxing in bed, finally I'm able to sort of close my eyes for a minute, but not really, because I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna have a baby soon. And then the midwife came back an hour later, checks to see how dilated I am, and I'm at 9 centimeters. So I was like, yes, oh my god, thank God. And she's like, okay, I'm gonna come back in another hour and you're gonna have a baby. And up until that point, no, so it must have been more than an hour at this point. Like with the whole thing, it must have been 2 hours that she let me rest, and then she came back and she was like, oh my god, you're at 9 centimeters. And I was like, I'd forgot, like even when she said, then you're gonna have a baby, I had like forgotten that I was even there to have a baby, because I was so tired. I didn't even know what I was doing anymore, honestly. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna have a baby, which is like sort of nerve-wracking when you're like, okay, it's like, you know, an hour away, I'm gonna have a baby. And it was very crazy. So anyway, she came back an hour later. I was 10 centimeters. And she's like, so basically whenever you're ready to push, start pushing. And I started pushing, and I could like very faintly, so the contractions like change when you're having pushing contractions from regular contractions, and my contractions had changed. I actually felt that sort of sensation that the doula had been talking about hours and hours before, about like that pressure on the anus of like the biggest poo of your life. I could feel that even with the epidural. I still felt the pressure waves on the epidural as well, just not as intensely. So they were like, whenever, like, start pushing. So I just started pushing, and the pushing went really well. I actually did it in a really short period of time. I think it only took like 15 minutes. It's so crazy to go from like 36 hours of birthing time, and then it's like 15 minutes of pushing. It was like so intense, like so intense. And I'm like starting to sweat just thinking about it. And the weirdest part is that I just kind of remember like looking up and seeing so many random people in the room, which is a weird feeling. Like doctors that I'd never seen for the entire night were sort of like, yeah, push, like do it. And I'm like, who are you? Like I haven't seen you. Like who are you? I really didn't like that. I didn't like how it was sort of like an open door, like anyone was coming and going. I didn't like that. I can remember just like pushing as hard as I freaking could. And when the baby came out, Matisse caught the baby. We actually didn't know the sex. So Matisse caught the baby, and it was sort of like everything just went silent. And the baby came out and came on my chest, and after 9 months, it was like, I just was like, oh, I know you. I know you already. You know, we know each other. This isn't like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. This is like, I know you. And it was sort of like a reunion. And I instantly felt like she was like good, healthy. I knew everything was going to be okay. I knew this baby was good, 100%. I just had this gut feeling. I was like, this baby is good. And then we didn't know the sex. So Matisse, I remember like him sort of, it felt like it was like 10 minutes. Like he's like trying to like look to see, you know, is it a boy or a girl? And it's like, it felt like so long, and he's like checking, and he, all of a sudden he just goes, it's a girl. And he just breaks out and starts crying, and I was crying, and it was the most magical moment. I think not finding out the sex is like one of the most awesome things in the whole world. I would highly recommend waiting. Obviously your choice, but like waiting to find out there's so few surprises like that in life that it was pretty special. And then from there, she, just like I had watched in all of the movies and all the research I had done, I sort of just held her like this. And I had seen in other films and stuff how the baby, if you just put them on your naked chest, how they start to just crawl towards your breast, and they start to just latch on themselves. Like they know exactly what they're doing intuitively. And that's exactly what she did. She started to make her way towards there. I had no idea how to breastfeed. I was like, I've never done this before. So the doula was there and she sort of showed me how to do it. And I was like, okay, but no idea. Okay. And just started doing it. And we, I don't know, man, it's such a crazy story. And then we had already chosen a name for a boy and a girl. And we were like, okay, so it's Safia. Like, okay, she's a Safia, you know, because sometimes you meet babies and you're like, that's not their name. But we were like, yeah, this is a Safia. This is a Safi. And it was just like the most incredible experience. It's like you go from it in all just one moment, everything changes. My whole life changed. Everything changed. Nothing was ever the same again. The life I had known before was the life I had known before. And now my whole world revolved around this little tiny, beautiful, healthy baby. And it was just, oh man, it's such a crazy experience. Then after that, we were in the room for a little bit longer. Matisse actually cut the placenta with the scissors, and I remember him telling me it was sort of hard to cut through. And Matisse's grandmother came and picked up the placenta and took it to the woman that does the placenta capsulization in Vancouver. And I think that taking the placenta really helped with, I didn't have any postpartum depression and I had no issues with milk supply. So I think eating the placenta after birth is key. Now I have so much knowledge that I learned from this, from my experience, and I'll definitely be doing things differently next time for sure, whenever that time is. Always knowing that you are making your own choices in birth, and having a sovereign birth and pregnancy experience is the most important thing in the world. You know, if you're like, I want to have an epidural right off the bat and I don't want to go through ever having a natural birth, that's awesome, as long as it's your choice and it's not someone else's choice for you. I think that's the most important thing. And that's something that goes in with parenting as well, because, you know, we did so much research on figuring out on birthing, which is such an important step, but also like parenting is like a whole other thing, you know, that you have to learn through and do research on. And so being sovereign in your parenting and you know, knowing what's best for your own children, no matter what someone else says, is such an important tool to learn during your pregnancy, so that you have that when you have the child, because it is craziness when you have a child, and there's so much information out there. Google is filled with do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that, do this. It's like so overwhelming that you really have to log out of Google and be like, what feels right to me? If something doesn't feel right to you that you're reading about, it's probably not right for you. Anyways, I feel so incredibly grateful to have this platform to share my experience and what I went through, and I hope that you were able to take something away from it. Thank you so much for watching this week's video. Thank you so much for all of your support so far. It's been really fun starting this channel. I'm really enjoying doing it. So thank you so much for all of your support so far. And I look forward to doing another video next week. And I hope you're taking care of yourselves, and we'll chat soon. Ciao.